The default for men is I'll support you no matter what you choose. And we have recognized through our research that we need to empower and equip them to understand that they do have a voice in this. In fact, he is the most influential voice in this, and that the abortion industry is trying to quiet them.
Welcome to Lifeline for Leaders, a podcast created to strengthen and connect those serving in pregnancy care clinics and pro-life ministries. I'm Linda Thomas.
And I'm Kirk Thomas. Each week we sit down with leaders, ministry partners, authors, and experts who shape the pro-life landscape, sharing practical insights you can use right away and inspiring stories that remind you you're not walking this journey alone.
Our mission is to help you serve with confidence and resilience. This is your community, your support, your lifeline. The better we understand the people we serve, the better we can serve them. That's the heart of today's conversation. Our guest is Brandy Meeks, president of the Vitae Foundation. Before leading Vitae, Brandy directed a pregnancy center and helped in national leadership, helping strengthen the pro-life movement. Today, she's helping pregnancy centers across the country benefit from research that's changing conversations and saving lives. Brandy, welcome to Lifeline for Leaders.
Welcome, Brandy.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
Yeah.
It is truly our pleasure. Kirk and I have been looking forward to this. We've had you on the books for quite a while now. You are a popular gal, and we want to dive right into the conversation and get some information from you about the Vitae Foundation and your journey. But first, let's let Kirk lead us in prayer.
Heavenly Father, help us lead with wisdom, serve with compassion, and always seek to understand those you've called us to reach. Bless the work of every listener and every pro-life employee and volunteer that's listening today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So, Brandy, so those of there might be some people, our listeners, that might not know anything about the Vitae Foundation. So can you tell us about what you do?
Would be honored. So I hope everyone knows about us. We are a little bit of a best kept pro-life secret, if you will. We do a lot of behind the scenes work, but our focus is on research. Research, you usually think of, surveys and polling. Our research is different. It's emotional research. It's consumer research. It's the kind of research that would typically help people understand why they make the decisions that they do. And when you think of consumer research, you would think about, maybe why you choose the razor that you do in the store, or maybe why you choose the soda that you do. These kind of emotional motivators, right, that will help you as you're making decisions. Well, it also relates to the pro-life movement. And you might say, Brandy, how is that even possible? Well, abortion, unfortunately, is a consumer decision, as crass as it sounds. Women are faced with a choice on whether they want to go through with an abortion or not. And we desire to try to understand the emotions behind that decision so that we can create messaging and marketing that helps meet her in her now moment. That's really the foundational piece of a lot of the work that we've done up until now. And in a little bit, I'm sure I'll be able to share about how we've expanded that even further to reach more people than just the woman that's in that now moment. But that's primarily the work that we've done in order to help connect with the pregnancy centers and help them reach more of their audience that they're trying to connect with as well.
Wow. You mentioned it's just not polling or surveys, it's emotional research. So how do you do that with the people that you're getting the information from? That's just intriguing.
Okay, so basically they're case studies. So if you have a psychology background, you understand the importance of case studies and interviews and being able to sit down and understand how people got to a certain place in their life. And we take them back through repetition, through visualization and relaxation to try to understand where they were in that moment as they were navigating certain decisions in their life. So specifically for us, we were trying to dive into that abortion decision, that crisis pregnancy that they're navigating. And we do this with a series of interview questions, and we sit down with them individually to go through that. We do these at consumer research facilities all over the country. So sometimes our research has been based out of our last study we did in Denver and Phoenix and Dallas, St. Louis, and Orlando. So all over the country, we have these sites that we work with in order to help bring in an audience that does not realize that we're pro-life. We do not want them to try to aim their answers in any way that they think might want to be perceived a certain way. We truly want to get to the heart of the matter so that we can better understand how to connect with them and communicate with them.
Right.
This is so fascinating. There's so many directions. I don't know what to ask next. I have so many questions, but you have a marketing and advertising background. So is that outside of the pro-life movement, or was that?
You know, it was a psychology background in education, but then also communication as well. As I got into the pro-life movement, that's where I really started to understand like the psychological factors that influence the decisions that people made. And then I expanded it beyond that. So I started as a pregnancy center director, used the marketing and messaging background that I had through my education. And then after that, that's really what expanded my reach into doing more marketing beyond just the pro-life movement. So I wouldn't say a step away, but a step forward in doing not just pregnancy center marketing and messaging, but trying to understand just, again, the emotional motivators behind why people do what they do and how to influence them, how to connect with them emotionally so that we can better understand what it is that the problem that they're trying to solve and help them in that moment.
And so you're talking about communication, being able to communicate with them effectively, the abortion-minded woman, how to communicate with them effectively. So that was that more of a radical idea than what had been previously done at the center specifically?
You know, at my pregnancy center that I was at, which was north of Kansas City, when I came in, we had just shifted to a model that was aimed at messaging more to her. It did mean that we were moving our messaging away from being baby focused to being woman focused. And that was a shift. And that was a little bit difficult. That was hard to step into, especially because those of us that have been raised pro-life for a long time, we did focus on the baby. And innately, like, especially like as a mom myself, why not? Right? Because we think there's this innocent human being that we want to protect and we have this desire to protect. And so it makes sense from that perspective. But for a woman who is navigating that decision, she doesn't even see herself as a mother yet. It's a bridge too far for her in that moment. And so we had to shift to being woman focused, not even mother focused, like woman focused, so that we could connect with her. And then once she knew that we were focusing on her and not just looking past her to that child that she was carrying in the womb, that is how we save lives. Because when you tell her to choose life, she thinks, whose? Mine? This life that I knew, that I thought, this plan that I had, or this child that I'm carrying in my womb. And so we recognized that we had to shift our focus in order to be able to help her feel seen and heard and to talk to her about her.
So, being that you're a past director, Brandy, how would you have used the research that Vitae has to benefit your clients? I mean, and how do you recommend that all the directors that are listening use the information that you're providing?
Well, when I was at the pregnancy center, that's how I found out about Vitae Foundation. And it really illuminated a piece for me because we were seeing things in the center that when the research came out, it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's not new news to us, right? Yeah. Already, we see that every single day. We're living that. We're feeling that. But what it did is allowed us to have this research to point to for those people that might not be working in this every single day. So we had board members, we had volunteers that were working in other areas that didn't get to see the actual decision making of that woman. We had donors. It was really hard to help them understand, again, like, why are we even talking about abortion? You know, we had that question all the time, like, why would you even bring it up as an option? Well, the research shows that she's like, in this moment, she actually thinks, not mine, but abortion is the least of the three evils. And you might say, wow, that's unbelievable that those words would come out of your mouth, Brandy. But in that moment, she is thinking about adoption, parenting, and abortion. And the research has shown that abortion, she considers, again, her words, some of their words that used in the study, the least of the three evils, because she thinks that adoption, she has all these conflicts in her mind about abuse and neglect, and she's going to be in the dark, and what could happen to this child, and she would be carrying that weight with her for the rest of her life. Parenting, again, she doesn't feel ready for motherhood. She feels alone and isolated, and like she can't do this on her own. And so abortion, in her mind, in many cases, she feels like she is actually giving that child back to God, that is the only guaranteed solution that lets her know that her child will be taken care of in the arms of God. And I know that might sound upside down to many of us, right? And that is why this research is so important, because that is what she is experiencing in that moment. She feels cornered, she feels trapped. And so if we can use that research then to not just allow us to shape our messaging, but also help equip others to have compassion and understanding of what that woman is going through. It allowed me as a pregnancy center director to point to articles, to point to information, to help verify what it was that we were going through. It wasn't an isolated incident. It wasn't just tacit knowledge that we were developing on our own. We could clearly see that this is a systemic issue. And so it gave us something to point to. It gave us a place to put our feet.
Great.
And Brandy, you mentioned adoption. How has your messaging about adoption changed since the research was done?
I think it's important to not just place adoption as a substitute for abortion. We see these signs that are outside the abortion clinics that actually have the word abortion and adoption, letters like, X'd out, and adoption as the replacement letters, on the signs. And I get that messaging is sticky. And again, it's marketing. I understand that sometimes we're looking for something that's cute to put out there just to help grab attention. But the problem is that that's not, in her mind, that option doesn't work in that moment. Again, she still has so many fears. Now, I do think that there's a lot that the adoption community has done in order to help alleviate some of those fears. I think open adoption is a beautiful thing that has transpired. And for a long time, you had closed adoptions that did mean that the woman was not in the driver's seat to be able to help choose and place where her child was. And there was a lot of different language that was used because you were constantly talking about giving up your child for adoption, right? And we're saying, no, we're going to use the words place your child. Also, there are really great adoption groups out there now that will help the birth mothers, because I think we have to be really cautious to care for the birth mothers' hearts, because many times the situations, the issues that have gotten them into these places where they're experiencing unexpected pregnancies, we're not helping them with those root issues. So instead, we're just continuing to see them bring more and more babies, more and more unexpected pregnancies to adoption procedures. And honestly, I feel like that's using women. I feel like that is using them as a commodity. And it's heartbreaking to me. Instead, we need to be serving the birth mothers and honoring them well, and hopefully helping them get their lives in order so that they don't have the same kind of problems, the same kind of issues that are getting them into these unexpected pregnancies to begin with. So that's a little bit of my heart on that. And the research has helped us understand that better. We haven't done a study on adoption recently. I think that is something that is definitely on the radar for the future. I think it's something that it would be great for us to be able to dig into more.
Yeah, that would
And
be wonderful.
you've talked about the, research of the emotions of mom. Is there research that you've done on the emotions of what dad's going through during this time?
You teed this up perfectly, didn't you, sir? Yes. So here's the thing. I opened up by talking about how we had been focused on the baby for a long time, right? Again, hear my heart. I see the humanity of the child. I understand the innocence of this sweet little thing that we want to protect. And we all saw as a movement that we needed to shift to focus on the woman, right? Because if we truly want to save that baby and we want to minister to her heart, we have to talk to her. But there is another step to this. And this is where do think in the movement, we allowed the pro-abortion side to dictate where our battles were going to be. We have followed them on the battlefield. When they shifted away from the humanity of the child to go talk about it being a woman's right, we chased after them and said, you know what? We can do this and we can do it better, right? And we kind of left behind the humanity of the child. Again, I think it's a both and situation. We shouldn't choose only focus on one, right? Well, what happened along the way as well is that men were told that they don't have a voice in this issue. They were told to, frankly, sit down and shut up. And as a whole, we also have seen in our culture that men have been stripped of their masculinity, plain and simple. They have been told that, women are in charge, my body, my choice. You should not be talking to me about this. You do not have a say. You don't have a uterus. All of these things that talk down to men. And unfortunately, we have played right into their hands. Because what has happened is that, again, isolation is the tool of the enemy, and women feel like they're alone. And so we saw this start to develop a few years ago. We had some pregnancy center directors start to reach out to us and said, hey, can we get a study on men? Like, you guys have done exceptional work on women and how to communicate with women, but we're worried about the man too. And we weren't quite ready for it. But then there were some things that started to happen. And when God starts bringing things into your life, you will start to notice a theme of things. There will be a string of events that you'll say, oh, I see you. Okay. And you start to put them together. And I experienced that personally as well. I will tell you that I will support you no matter what you choose is a phrase that you might have even heard you say, like you even heard it in your head as I was rattling it off, that it was something that you could finish my sentence. It is a phrase that has been absolutely inundated into our lives, into our culture. It is a passive phrase that allows us to check the box and basically say, hey, I'll be here for you, but you're going to handle this on your own, right? Well, unfortunately, that's what young men have been taught as the compassionate thing to say. They've been told, I'll support you no matter what you choose is what you're supposed to say. And so we saw a study we did a study on abortion healing with women. We were trying to understand how to get them into healing sooner, especially after the abortion pill, so that we could prevent more abortions from happening, because we know that women who have one abortion are oftentimes coming back for repeat abortions. And even pro-abortion women in this study said that they resented when their partner said, I'll support you no matter what you choose. And so that was an eye-opening moment for us, because we're like, man, I wonder if the men know that. And so as we are trying to look, again, we're hearing it from pregnancy center directors that are telling us this, that they want to study on men. We see this come out of this study. So we say, you know what, maybe this is something that we should do. And what we recognized is that when we told this to the men in the study, to these individual case studies, we're sitting down with these interviews, like I explained earlier, there were a couple men that actually used these words. They said, well, damned if you do and damned if you don't. And we sat there just kind of dumbfounded. But they feel like, you have told me you don't want me to have a say in this. You've told me that you want me to just be quiet on this issue and just be here to support no matter what it is that you choose. And now you're telling me you want me to say something. You want me to stand up. You want me to say something different. Oh, well, then why has everyone told me that this is what I'm supposed to say? Well, the truth is that the women were looking for something. It can be as high level as, I don't know what this looks like, but I'll help you be the best mom possible, and I'll be the best dad possible, and we'll figure this out together. And I know this personally, because when I'm telling you that those themes start to erupt, because we saw it with the pregnancy center directors asking for the men's study. We saw it come out of the abortion healing study, that even pro-abortion women are saying, please don't say that to me. And then I know that those words are true. I'll help you be the best mom possible. I'll be the best dad possible, and we'll figure this out together. Because that's what my son in an unexpected pregnancy said to his girlfriend at the time. I'm a Grammy. I have a sweet little grandbaby named Emmy. She's getting ready to turn 2 this September. But thankfully, my son knew in that moment what to say. Now, given the circumstances that got them into this situation, not ideal, but my grandbaby is not a mistake. Her life matters. And thankfully, my son knew what to say. And he knew in that moment how to lead on this issue. And so I think that was the final straw for us, what illuminated to us that we needed to dig into this issue more. And now we are seeing men all over the country. We see men that are grieving. They are grieving the abortions that they had. They're grieving the fact that they thought they were saying the right thing by saying, I'll support you no matter what you choose, and didn't understand that they were actually pushing her into an abortion because she feels like this is what she has shared. She feels like when you say those words to her, you take all of the responsibility and you dump it on her shoulders. She feels like then she has to make that decision alone. And in many cases, that's why she's not seeking out abortion healing early on, because she feels like this is her burden to bear because she made this decision alone. So she deserves the consequences alone. And so that is what we're trying to untangle here. The default for men is I'll support you no matter what you choose. And we have recognized through our research that we need to empower and equip them to understand that they do have a voice in this. In fact, he is the most influential voice in this, and that the abortion industry is trying to quiet them. They're trying to keep their voices low and eliminated. In fact, I used to work with former abortion workers. I did for years working for Abby Johnson. And I love those ladies. There's a few men that have come out of the abortion industry too, but those ladies have very special friendships in my heart. And they would share that they would do everything in their power to make it uncomfortable for a man to be part of that appointment. They would go so far as to being rude to him on the phone if he called in. They would tell her to not bring him if he did show up. They would make sure he stayed out in the waiting room while they took the woman back. And then because they couldn't risk him possibly looking at an ultrasound. They already turned it away from her, but he can't be in that room to see it and connect with his child. They leave him in the waiting room. Guys, they would turn the heat up in the waiting room so that he would leave the waiting room. And so when they would come back to call him back for the portion of the appointment that they would allow him to come back to, they go back and report to her, we don't know where he is because he's gone out to his car. They don't tell her that part. And she feels alone and she feels isolated. They know that men are the missing piece, friends. And so when we are looking at how can we solve this issue and we truly want to change the culture, we really need to evaluate our programming for men, our mentoring that we can do for men, our messaging that we can connect with men on. And that is why we did this study on men. We are the first pro-life group in the country that has ever done an emotional research study on men in that now moment. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And we're getting ready actually to start planning another one because we need to do more. We need to understand how to minister to his heart as well, because he deserves to have a say in being able to parent his child and especially support the woman that's in his life.
Yeah. We had Sean Corcoran on the podcast, and
Yeah.
it was just great to see how he's fighting for men to fight for their masculinity back, you know what I mean?
That's right.
And say that.
Sean and I talk, actually, he and I had a meeting yesterday. We talk frequently because we are working together to try to plan out some great messaging and some great resources for the Pregnancy Center and for the pro-life movement. I say this often, and men and women were designed to be complementary. We were never meant to be in competition, right? Men are naturally wired as protectors, as providers, and our research absolutely back that up as well. We know that innately, but it was nice to have the research behind us to point to. And women are naturally wired as nurturers. It does not mean that women can't lead. Hello, right? Like a mom of 5 here and lead a national organization. Right? It doesn't mean that we can't lead. It just means we lead differently. And that's okay. And so the men that are out here watching this today, I just want to tell you, I'm a strong woman here. I'm sure you can hear that in the passion that I share about this mission. But we need you to protect us. And we certainly need you to protect our children. And I think that that's what we have to do more of. I was speaking recently out in Denver, and I was speaking to a young group of Christian professionals. And When I said those lines to them, I watched the men sit up in their chairs. I watched their eyes light up. I watched their faces, right? Where they're like, wow, like someone's actually saying it. Someone's actually giving us permission to do this. And you know what? The women in that room too, they clapped, friends. They clapped. I mean, a couple of them actually stood up. Women are ready. We're ready. This generation is ready. And I think that that's that's the hopeful thing about this, is that we need more people sharing stories. We need more podcasts like this. We need more opportunities to be able to talk about what we're for. It's not even everything that we're against. It's what we're for. We are pro family. We are pro life. We are pro men and pro women and pro baby. We don't have to choose between these things. We were never meant to be in competition. We were always made to be complementary. And I think that that's what we have to lean into. Those are our strengths in humanity. And that's something that we need to do more of.
Hmm.
And I feel much more confident in achieving that goal of attracting people to the message because of the way you and your team at Vitae Foundation have really dug in and taken a look at the emotions that go behind the research instead of surveys and polls. So it's powerful, and I thank you for that. And we are out of time,
Well,
but
hey,
I was going to ask Kirk if he had one more question
thank you. And
first. He always does.
I know we're running short on time, but
I know. I
you
hate
know,
this.
I just wanted to, has there been any research, Brandy, on how, before 10, 20 years ago, a lady had to go into a abortion facility. Now it's so easily with mifepristone and misoprostol that it's so easily accessible. Is there any type of research you've done on this chemical abortion and how pregnancy care centers can get ready for it? So I know that abortion pill reversal is a service that a lot of them are taking on, but is there anything that you're doing to help that understanding?
We did do a chemical abortion study. We did it a couple years ago. And the great thing about our research as well is, and I want to highlight, is that it's timeless. It's different than the surveys and polling that typically when you're looking to cite research, like if it's more than 4 or 5 years, then it's too old. In our situation, again, emotions don't change. The outside factors do, but the underlying things like fear, guilt, shame, those things are universal and they're timeless. Okay. We did this chemical abortion study a couple years ago, and what we saw is that there is a huge issue with the fact that women do not truly understand what it is that they are putting in their body. They do not understand the difference between something like Plan B and the abortion pill, mifepristone, misoprostol. They don't know the difference. And it's part of that is because the abortion industry has these messaging strategies of like, restart your period, bring your period back, as if they're not actually ending a life. So I do think that we need to recognize that for pregnancy centers, the ultrasound isn't necessarily going to be able to get to them at this moment, right? Because it's too early. They are taking these pills before they're seeing a heartbeat on a screen, before it's too early to be able to see much on a screen. So we need to do a better job of education. But something that we saw as well is, and this is why we started doing the abortion healing study, is if we can get to the women sooner with healing, we can prevent the additional abortion pill chemical abortions that are happening, because that's part of the issue, is that once they do it once, they're doing it 2, 3, 4 times. And so I think part of it is an education program for them to understand what it is exactly that they're putting in their bodies, what chemical abortion truly is. And I think some groups are doing that extremely well already. You see a lot of messaging behind that and some videos behind that. The mainstream media won't touch it, but I do think it's important that we can talk about it as much as possible, especially in our homes. Guys, that's where it starts.
Right.
We have to talk about this. We have to talk about this issue, 1. And then 2, we need to do a better job with abortion healing. We need to make sure that as a church, as a community member, that we know where the local abortion healing programs are, and we can connect a friend, anybody who talks about it, has been harmed by abortion in any way, shape, or form, that we can connect them with that immediately, so that then they're not waiting 10, 20, 30 years before they're connecting with healing. Because in that 10, 20, 30 years, there's a good possibility they're having multiple abortions, and even more possible with the abortion pill.
How did the pregnancy care centers access the research that you've done just on can you share what the best way for them to do that would be?
I would love to. We have Vitae Vault, and it is exclusively for pregnancy centers. No cost to them. We do make sure that they need to sign up for it because we do vet everyone. We do not just let everyone on it. We think it's important that they have their own community, and we update that regularly. It's going to have all of our most recent research studies. We have blogs on there. We have social media information. We have inside tips on how to run different types of marketing and messaging campaigns. But most importantly, it is a community. It's where you can go and find out information about the research and point to it so that you have it at your fingertips. Again, some of this stuff is not going to be a shock to you because you deal with it every single day, but it's a treasure trove to be able to illuminate some things from a different perspective you haven't thought of, and also to be able to share with your board members, your donors, to help them catch the vision and understand with just a truly a more open mind about the issue, again, on how to change hearts and minds.
Will you be at some of the national conferences where somebody just wants to say, "Hey, hello, I
Come on
appreciate
over.
you"?
Yeah.
So you'll be at CareNet?
I won't personally be at CareNet this year. Our team will, and I know they would love to be able to connect with all of the pregnancy centers. And so we do try to be at any time that there is any kind of pregnancy center conference. We try to be there at least I do know we're teaching a workshop there too. So we've got some educational pieces. We'll definitely have our booth. You'll have an opportunity to be able to sign up for Vitae Vault. And again, all of the information that we offer to the pregnancy centers is at no cost. We genuinely want to help. And we do this research with some wonderful donors that step in and understand that, again, our work is different. Everybody has their own lane, their own specialty, if you will. And our specialty is truly trying to understand how people are feeling in that now moment, men and women, and how we can best connect with them to give them hope. The hope of Jesus Christ, the hope that choosing life is so much better, and to be able to help them be the best parents possible for their children.
Well, I have one last question. It's something we ask our guests every Lifeline for Leaders. And that is, Brandy, if you could leave our listeners with one lifeline, one piece of practical wisdom or encouragement, what would that be?
I would tell you to love people enough to tell them the truth. That's a phrase that we use frequently over here, but I'm going to take that a step further. Love people enough to tell them the truth with compassion. And that is really what our research focuses on. You can go out there and you can certainly deliver truth all day long, but if it isn't clothed in compassion, if it's not shared in the context of a relationship, then oftentimes it falls flat. But when you can do it with compassion and full of grace and mercy, you can watch hearts change. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about how we can each carry out the mission that God has placed on our hearts every single day, is to carry forth the truth with compassion and grace.
Well, I am just going to leave everyone with that. Kind of got me choked up a little bit. So I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. But Brandy, thank you so much for what you do and what the Vitae Foundation is doing. And to our listeners, here's a reminder once again to keep leading with courage and compassion. Thanks for joining us today on Lifeline for Leaders. If today's episode was meaningful, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a conversation.
Remember, you don't have to walk this mission alone. We're honored to walk alongside you.
See you next time.